Chapter 5, Spring 2003. News. Thursday, March 6th, 2003. Cammie's MRI went well on Tuesday, and we met with Dr. Mortel yesterday to discuss the next course of action. The VP16 seems to be affecting and shrinking the main tumor, and the swelling that was going up to her brainstem has gone down considerably. This is very good news, and we have seen such an improvement in Cammie's movement. Dr. Mortel seemed very concerned, however, because the small tumors above and below seem to have increased slightly. This can be dangerous since they are new tumors and may spread and grow. We need to try to get these with additional chemo medicines. We will add 2 new medicines and get another MRI in 2 months. Cammie will be tapering down off of the steroid much slower this time. She won't be completely off until the end of April. This way, we hope her own hormone glands will kick in a little at a time. It is going well so far. Cammie's movement continues to improve. Her teachers, Molly and Jane, are motivating her to stay out of her wheelchair and use her walker while she is in the classroom. When she is in her wheelchair going to other places in the building, she often likes to wheel herself. Cammie is always excited to go to PE, where Mr. T sets up all sorts of fun things for her to do. Last Monday marked a big milestone for Cammie at school. The kindergartners got up on stage to sing songs. Cammie walked with her walker to the middle of the stage and proudly stood and sang with the rest of her class. Cammie loves school so much and looks forward to going every day. She is able to focus on all the good things at school, which helps her get through her treatment. As we approach 1 year since we found out about Cammie's tumor, we are filled with mixed and complicated emotions. It is truly a miracle that Cammie is doing as well as she is. We feel so much love and compassion for her and for Duke and Gina as we look back on this year and think about all that we have all endured. Cancer is such a mystery. We are learning very hard lessons about not having control of our lives and enjoying every day in the face of tragedy and uncertainty. We would like to announce that we are in the process of selling our house and moving to a new townhouse that will be handicap accessible and easier for us to manage. It will be very near to our present home, so we feel it is a very positive move for our family. If you would like to make a donation to help with the process, we would very much appreciate it. Thank you and blessings to you all, the Wynn family. March Madness. We must have been crazy. Crazy things were happening to us. March was so crazy, we just went along for the ride. Cammie had her MRI on the 4th. We added 2 new chemo medicines along with her VP16. We moved to an apartment on the 8th, and we went to Disney World for Cammie's Make-A-Wish trip on the 16th. Cammie's condition was definitely improving. In school, she was using her walker a lot more, sitting in different chairs and holding on to people's hands to walk short distances. She continued to do lots of activities in PE, including riding her bike. She rode her bike in a big circle on the outside of the gym while the other kids played on the inside. Her class began studying Cammie's favorite unit, Hawaii. Before spring vacation, the class took a class trip to Hawaii. Everyone dressed up in Hawaiian clothes, checked into the airport, sat in chairs that were set up like an airplane, and landed in Hawaii. And then they did lots of Hawaiian activities, including surfing and hula dancing. At the end of the Hawaiian unit, the class was to perform a Hawaiian play. And Cammie's teachers thought it would be good motivation for Cammie to be one of the hula dancers in the play. They introduced this idea on the day of the trip, and Cammie was thrilled. At home, the idea of moving into the apartment was not really real. We just thought of this idea a few weeks before we had to move. The kids hadn't even seen the apartment before moving day. We just made the decision and did it without thinking about it much. It was too sad to think that we had to move out of our beautiful house that we loved so much. It was way too hard to think about all the stuff we had to pack. I packed only the clothes that we needed, and I packed everything for our Disney trip. I also planned to take all of our junky furniture to the apartment so that we left our good furniture in the house for open houses. I actually did a phenomenal job planning. On moving day, I had no energy to do anything. I was weighed down by sadness. I didn't want to leave. On moving day, with the help of some good friends, we moved everything we needed over to the apartment. We ended up just throwing everything into plastic garbage bags and taking them over in many trips. The kids were basically in shock. They didn't really understand what was going on. They thought an apartment must be way too small to live in. On moving day, we had to make sure that everything was in place for us to eat, sleep, watch TV, and play on the computer. These were the 4 essentials of survival. We all had to sleep in one bedroom. We arranged a queen, a double, and a single mattress on the floor to fit in this one room. It was very cozy. The first night, Duke woke up in the middle of the night, and he went out and sat in the middle of the living room floor, and he started crying. He said he wanted to go home. Poor Duke was only 2.5. He had no idea what was going on. It took a couple of days for reality to sink in. Luckily, Francois had spring break that week, so he could work hard to get us better settled in. The hardest thing for him was where he was going to keep the chemo medicines at the apartment. He was always very careful about the chemo medicines. Cammie stopped taking the Accutane pills completely and was now trying thalidomide and Cytoxan in addition to the VP16. We were very worried about the side effects of these new chemos. Thalidomide was given to pregnant women to help them sleep in the late 1950s, and it caused severe birth defects, and then it was stopped. Again, we had to sign papers saying Cammie was not pregnant. Cammie was only 6 years old. Weren't they worried about what it would do to her? Apparently not. We were concerned, and we didn't want these medicines anywhere near us. Francois had to keep them away from the kitchen or anywhere that any of the kids might get to them. He had to wear a special surgical gown, mask, and gloves when he got the medicines ready. 2 of the medicines were liquid, but the other came in pills. He had to crush the pills with a hammer while the pills were folded inside a piece of foil. Then mix them into a cup filled with juice. Luckily, these pills dissolved completely in the juice, unlike the Accutane, which did not dissolve, and Cammie didn't like that. So now Cammie would drink 2 cups of chemo juice mixture. We couldn't use grapefruit juice anymore because just the sight of grapefruit juice would make her throw up. It was like the plague. She would have to shield her eyes from grapefruits in the store or anywhere else. If you even said the word grapefruit, she would start gagging. She could tolerate other kinds of juices, so it seemed like the nausea problem was better. Not only did the chemo medicines have to be hidden somewhere, but Francois needed a little workspace to crush the pills and mix them. At first, he put the chemo in the closet of the apartment, but that did not work out very well. Cammie didn't like to see him with all of his stuff on. She didn't like to see him crushing the pills. So he had to go set up in a storage area that we had down the hall. He left the apartment, did his thing, took off all of his stuff before he came back into the apartment and bring Cammie the medicines. Every evening we had our chemo ritual. Francois would leave for a little while. When he came back, Gina would be in charge of Duke and I would get the throw-up bucket and the Kleenex. Francois and I held the chemo cups and gently coaxed her to drink them. After she drank, we had to wait a few minutes to see if she was going to throw up or not. If not, then we all went back to our regular activities. The side effects of these new chemos we were supposed to look out for were sleepiness and nausea. But Cammie didn't have a problem with sleepiness, but she did start to have a problem with nausea again. Cammie was able to take the VP16 in a cup mixed with juice with no problems. But now that we added these other ones, she started having nausea problems again. We didn't know if it was psychological because of the Accutane or an actual physical side effect. We had just started having nausea problems again when it was time for us to go to Disney World. Disney World. The Disney World trip came to us through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The foundation came to us early in the fall and offered Cammie anything she wanted. Well, Cammie wanted a horse, but unfortunately, we wouldn't even let her think of that. The people from the foundation visited us at home and talked to Cammie. We had a very nice visit with them, and they gave all the kids presents and gave us some ideas to think about. It was strange for me to explain to the kids what kind of foundation they were. We said it was a foundation that helped sick kids. Cammie understood and was excited to begin thinking about her wishes. But Gina didn't really believe us because there were so many sick kids. How could they all get wishes? Gina asked me, "Is this for kids who are going to die?" What could I say? How did she even know that? She must have been smarter than we thought. She knew how the world worked. People didn't just get extravagant wishes if they were sick. Cammie actually had a hard time thinking of something she wanted. Many other families went on Disney trips, and at first I thought Cammie would not be well enough to travel to Disney, so I thought about having a big party for her with lots of people. Then the Make-A-Wish person suggested that we can just wait and see how things go. So we waited until after Christmas to make a decision. With the good news of the January MRI, I talked to a Make-A-Wish person and they said there was still time to get a Disney trip booked for spring break. It seemed like a long way away and I had no idea what condition Cammie would be in, but I had to make a decision, so I just went for it. I had no idea we would be moving the week before our trip, and I had no idea Cammie would be throwing up all the time the week before the trip. Overall, Cammie was in great condition for the trip. She was moving better, she was able to sleep without being so elevated, and she was thoroughly excited. The foundation made it as easy as possible for us, and they provided everything. On one hand, it was hard for me to receive something so big as this from total strangers, but on the other hand, Cammie had gone through so much, she really deserved it. It was weird to have this kind of thing set up in our society. It was very weird to be on the receiving end of a wish. This meant that one of our children was probably going to die. We never liked to think of it this way. We always thought that there was hope. Even when there was no hope, we always believed in miracles. They should give wishes to all cancer kids. It should not be based on the outcome or the statistics. All cancer kids deserve big wishes after what they have to go through. I don't think, however, our society would give money to an organization that helped all cancer kids. Terminally ill sounds much more dramatic, and I'm sure draws in more money. Anyway, our trip was planned and we went. Early one Sunday morning, we got up and we got ready at the apartment. They didn't know we had moved, so we had to go back to our old house to be picked up by the limousine to go to the airport. The limousine ride was so much fun and could have been a wish in itself. At the airport, we were met by a Make-A-Wish volunteer who helped get us and all of our stuff to the gate. I wish we had one of these people on all of our trips. He was very helpful, and as we had Cammie in a wheelchair, Duke in his stroller, and all of our stuff, it was great to have his help. When we got to Florida, we had another volunteer meet us at our plane and help us at the car rental. Everything was provided for us, and we were given maps to the Give Kids the World village. The village was a little strange. It seemed like it was getting a little old and outdated. They had wonderful things for kids, and everything was specially made for wheelchairs. The strangest part, though, was being together with the other families, who all had ill children. The accommodations were very nice. The weather was great, so we walked around to see all the attractions. They had game rooms, a movie theater, a swimming pool, an ice cream shop, and a restaurant. Everything was paid for already, so we had a wonderful sense of freedom. We went to eat in the cafeteria-style restaurant, which was geared towards kids. The kids were excited about the food and the surroundings. We sat down and looked around. We were surrounded by families with sick kids. We tried not to think about it, but it was very hard. The staff was all volunteers and they were all very cheerful, but the families all around us were very sedate. They must have been going through a lot of suffering just like us. Francois and I lost our appetites. Gina soon felt the same way. Cammie wasn't eating anything anyway, and Duke didn't know what was going on, but he sensed something was wrong. We didn't eat at that restaurant again. We had lots to see and lots to do. We were ready for a fun and full vacation thanks to the foundation. The first place the kids wanted to go was to the Magic Kingdom. At the parking lot, we showed our handicap sticker and we were directed to where we were supposed to go. People were waiting for a shuttle. We figured they must have a wheelchair space on the shuttle if they directed us to go park here. It was spring break, so everything was very crowded. When the shuttle arrived, there was no handicap space. I thought we could get on anyway by folding everything up. As we started to load on, people swarmed in around us, fighting for every available space. They were so incredibly rude to get what they could out of their vacation. They were not going to let a family with a wheelchair get in their way. We had to take everything off of the shuttle, go back to the car, and try something else. It was not a good start. We drove around and we discovered the real handicap spaces. We parked there and walked to what we thought was the entrance. This entrance was just the line to choose how you wanted to get to the real entrance. We chose a line to get onto a boat, which was to take us across the lake to get to the entrance. Francois decided to take Cammie's wheelchair and our Make-A-Wish badges and lead us around the crowd to get onto the boat. And it worked. The man led us onto the boat right away. This was our first wheelchair lesson at Disney. It was so crowded here, it was hard to do anything. We couldn't do the big rides, so we steered away from those. We ran into Aladdin right away, and he lifted our spirits. The girls decided, instead of rides, that they wanted to focus on the characters, especially princesses. That was easier said than done, though. Luckily, the next character we saw was Merlin the Magician. It was very interesting. He came out of a doorway and spotted Cammie right away in her wheelchair wearing her bandana. He passed by some other children and went directly up to Cammie. He asked her if she had her autograph book. We didn't know that there was such a thing as an autograph book, so he went back through the door and he came out with 3 special Disney autograph books, one for each child. He signed our 3 books and then he started walking away, totally ignoring all the other kids who were gathered around. He must have been in a hurry to get somewhere. After getting our autograph books, we walked back toward what I remember fondly as a child, the Small World ride. Francois took Duke somewhere else, and the line wasn't too bad, so the girls and I waited in the line. When we arrived at the boat to get in, the woman running the ride was surprised to see us, and she showed us that there was a different entrance for wheelchairs. She led us on, and we had to pass the wheelchair up and over to the other side of the boat. The girls loved this ride, and they wanted to do it again. The woman let us stay on and do it again. We were in a different Disney World than most people. The rules were different for us. We discovered that everything had a special wheelchair entrance, and our Make-A-Wish pass gave us even more privileges. Unfortunately, there was a downside to our trip. Cammie was nauseous from her new chemo, and she was throwing up many times a day. We carried plastic bags with us, and I always had to have one in my pocket for quick emergencies. We would stop, Cammie would throw up into the plastic bag, she would rinse her mouth using a water bottle, I would throw the bag away, and we would keep on going. Cammie didn't want to miss anything. She had fun despite being in a wheelchair and throwing up all the time. There was a lot of walking everywhere, which was hard on Gina. Cammie was in her wheelchair and Duke was in his stroller most of the time. It was also hard to find activities that we could all do. We ended up seeing a lot of live shows, which were fantastic. We saw Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, Lion King, and a parade with all the characters. We ended up not seeing very many princess characters, which was disappointing for the girls. It turned out they were all at a character breakfast that had to be booked way in advance. The best show we saw was the Hawaiian Luau at the Polynesian Hotel. It was so appropriate for Cammie's Hawaiian unit at school. It was a great show with a great meal, and at the end there was a fireworks display over the lake. Back at the Give Kids the World village, we enjoyed our evenings. They had a free movie theater, which the kids thought was great. One day, the girls had fun riding horses around a ring, and we actually took a swim in their pool after a long day at the parks. The pool had a ramp going into it. There were special wheelchairs made out of PVC plastic pipes, and they went down the ramp into the water. It was awesome to have these chairs. They looked like they were fairly simple to make, and it was wonderful as a way to get into the pool. Not only was it good for getting Cammie into the pool, they were great for her to sit on after she got out. She wouldn't have to get her wheelchair all wet. That was always a problem for us whenever we went swimming. This kind of chair made it so convenient. Next to the pool, there was a little water park. It was a little area set up like an obstacle course with water spraying in different directions. At first, it looked scary to Cammie. We explored it tentatively in the plastic wheelchair, and she discovered she liked being sprayed with the water jets. And then after a while, she told me to go faster. The more she sped up, the more fun she had. And pretty soon, I was zooming her around and around to all the different sprayers. She shrieked with joy as the water hit her. It was almost as if she were her old self running through the sprinkler at home. Gina and Duke got into the fun too. After we discovered the water park, that became our favorite attraction. When we were in Florida, the Iraq War started. When we came home, a big issue for us was selling our house. Unfortunately, the housing market took a sudden turn for the worse because of the war. When we first looked at our new townhouse, we had planned on selling our house for a better price. At that time, the housing market was excellent. It was very frustrating to think back on our bad luck with the economy after having such bad luck medically. We took this blow very hard. We would somehow manage financially. We had excellent credit and a lot of equity in our house, so we would just have to borrow more. The Iraq War and the downturn in the economy also signaled to us less chance for new cancer medicines to come out. Even though Cammie seemed to be getting much better, we had a sense it was not over. Those little tumors above and below her spine were growing. We would have to address those at some point. It was only a matter of time. April 2003, a good spring. Spring break ended and we learned a new routine of living in the apartment. Our living space was very cramped, but we actually managed very well. We only had a minimal amount of stuff, so it felt like we were on vacation. The kids were still in shock and had just come from our Disney trip. The weather was getting better, which lifted everyone's spirits. The kids were actually very good about accepting the apartment. Duke even got used to the apartment. Being in an apartment with children was a challenge, though. We had to be quiet. We had to try not to damage the white carpet, and we had to force ourselves outside every once in a while so that we didn't feel trapped. In order to get out to the car, we had to walk down a long hall, take the elevator, then walk a long way through the parking lot and get out to where our car was parked. It took a while, but it was all accessible, which was great for me. One day, Francois came home to the apartment after doing something at our other house. He said there was a turtle right in front of the house, and he brought it for us to see. It was a beautiful turtle, and we wondered how on earth it had gotten to our house. It was very symbolic because we always called Francois a turtle. He was very wise, but very slow. We had to keep it. We went to the pet shop and we bought a small tank and set it up in our living room. The kids were thrilled to have a pet. He was a nice companion and a reminder for us that slow and steady wins the race. School was going well for everyone. Cammie's class was full swing into their Hawaiian unit. They made a rainforest out in the hall, learned about tapa cloth, petroglyphs, and different kinds of boats. They learned about Hawaiian animals, fish, birds, plants, and fruit. They learned about how to make Hawaiian quilt patterns. They studied the artist Paul Gauguin. They heard Hawaiian stories and legends and played Hawaiian music with authentic instruments. They even had a special lei day where they each made a lei out of fresh flowers sent all the way from Hawaii. It felt like paradise in the classroom. Pure joy was on Cammie's face every day. She was able to move around much better now. She was able to sit on the floor supported by a pillow and play with her friends. She was able to dress up in Hawaiian clothes, play with the instruments, and practice her hula dancing. She was able to scrape coconut out of its shell and pound bananas into poi. She was able to fully participate in every aspect of the class play. She loved Hawaii. In terms of medicines, some things were going well and some things were not. Even though our original plan was to be off of hydrocortisone by April, because she was having so much trouble with nausea with this new chemo, we decided to keep her dosage steady for the month. Having this low-dose steroid every day gave her a little bit of an appetite and helped her keep the medicines down. When we got back from our trip, we gave her a few high doses of steroids to stop her vomiting. When that didn't work, we decided to stop the thalidomide and Cytoxan altogether. We felt it was more important for her to keep down that VP16. After a few weeks, we tried Cytoxan again and her vomiting continued to be a problem. Cammie was such an incredible sport about the whole situation. She would try her hardest. She knew these medicines were helping her. Francois would come in with the cups. We would try different juices. She would prepare herself by closing her eyes and taking deep breaths. She would take her sips, breathe deeply. She would drink it all down. We would all feel relief as it went down. Would she keep it down today? Maybe this would be a good day. We would start back on our activities, but then suddenly she would gag and I would quickly run and put the bucket in place. Not today, maybe tomorrow. My birthday was approaching. I tried not to make a big deal about my birthday, but it seemed to be a very powerful day for everyone else. I like to think of it as Queen Elizabeth's birthday, but unfortunately, it's also the day after Hitler's birthday. The first time something happened around my birthday was the standoff at Waco, Texas. Then there was the Oklahoma City bombing, and then the Columbine shooting. The year of Columbine, Francois' mother died after she had been in a nursing home for 2 months after a debilitating stroke. Francois was very close to his mother, and this was very difficult for him. Last year, for my birthday, we had taken Cammie home from the hospital for the first time. It had snowed that day, and since Francois' mother's name means snow in Vietnamese, we felt it was a blessing from her. This year, Easter was on the day of Francois' mother's passing, the day before my birthday. We were invited to go to brunch with John and Cynthia, as was our tradition. On that Sunday morning, I woke up in complete and utter back pain. I had never been in so much pain in my life. I had so many responsibilities I had to attend to, but I couldn't even get up. I didn't know what I was going to do. Francois took over the kids, we canceled brunch, and I rested the whole day. My pain must have come because I didn't have to lift Cammie at all now that we were in the apartment and my body gave out after the crisis was over. We had been in crisis for a year now and it seemed like Cammie was getting better. It was my turn to fall apart. Francois had seen a chiropractor a while ago, so I went to see him the next day. Even though I could get up and walk around after that first day of rest, I was still in a lot of pain. Dr. Alan Rydberg treated me and I felt much better. I set up appointments for myself to see him in the next few weeks. April was a big month for Gina. Gina had painted her famous Cats painting, and it was on display in the upper school. Later, that painting was put on the school calendar, where she became famous. Gina also made her stage debut as the mother in her class play. She did an incredible job and gave a memorable performance. Gina's favorite day of the year was the day of the school bazaar. It was a day of games, outside activities, and signaled the end of the school year. Gina was glad to be ending this school year, and she was looking forward to summer. May 2003, Cammie's G-tube and walking her first step. May brought resolution to Cammie's vomiting problem. Dr. Martell was on vacation, so after Cammie's MRI, we met with a different doctor at the clinic. We expressed our frustration with Cammie's inability to keep down her medicines most of the time. We also expressed how worried we were that she had not eaten very much for the last few months and was losing so much weight so fast. This doctor had not seen Cammie when she was at her heaviest, and he did not know her history very well. Sometimes I think it takes a new person to come into a situation to come up with a solution. This doctor suggested that we put a G-tube into Cammie's stomach and give her medicines that way. Later on, if it was necessary, we could also feed her using this tube. It was a brilliant idea and a huge burden lifted from our shoulders, especially Cammie's. Dr. Martell agreed when he returned, and he set up the surgery for the next week. School was coming to an end, and there were some very special end-of-the-year highlights. One special day was a PE field day. Each kindergartner had a fourth grade buddy, and they went around and did different activities set up all around the outdoor field. Cammie had 2 buddies assigned to her, but eventually attracted a whole group following. She patiently waited her turn at each station, and then she got out of her wheelchair and did the activity as best as she could. She was amazing. She had a great time. To her, it was no big deal that she was functioning pretty much normally outside, but to us, it was a very big deal. 2 days later, she went into surgery to get her G-tube placed. Everything went well, and she came out with a big, very long tube sticking out of her stomach. I was shown how to work the tube and was told it was to be changed into a small button in about 6 weeks. The length of the tube was a nuisance. We had to pin it up on the side of her shirt so that it wouldn't get caught on everything. But any hassle with this tube was worth it. As soon as we gave her medicines through the tube, she stopped throwing up. As Cammie said one day, "This G-tube works like a charm." She was so happy she didn't have to go through the torture of swallowing her medicines every day. One day in school, Cammie walked her first step on her own with no assistance. It was after school as we were hanging out with the teachers getting ready to go home. She just got up, she got her courage up, she stood up, and she took that step. We all saw her and we clapped and cheered. After she did that, there was no stopping her. Cammie's walking improved so rapidly, it got to the point where she could even walk long distances without assistance. One morning, she went to surprise her class by walking from the car into her classroom door without her wheelchair or her walker. As she walked across the playground, I was filled with excitement and pride. I also noticed for the first time how hunched over she was. She looked like an old grandmother, so small and frail and hunched over. Why had I not noticed this before? Maybe it was because she was getting so thin now, her bones were starting to stick out. I tried to keep the thought of her curved back out of my mind as I reveled in her newfound walking skills. News: Friday, May 16th, 2003. Cammie had another MRI last week. The results were mixed. Some areas of the tumor are shrinking, where others are growing. This means the medicines she has been taking are working, but we need to add more. We will enter another year of the cancer battle. Before we had children, we had relative control over our lives. We made plans and set goals and worked hard to achieve them. The kids came along and we let go of some of our control as we lived in the glorious chaos of raising a family. But cancer is forcing us to give up complete control. We are forced to live day by day and deal with what is immediately in front of us. Cammie's progress has been absolutely remarkable. She walked for the first time on her own without assistance of her walker or her crutches. It was a miracle. She is very excited about this and very motivated to do all the things she has not been able to do since her surgery over a year ago. She doesn't have much endurance yet, but hopefully that will come. Cammie has been able to transfer from the strong steroid Decadron to a much lower dose of the steroid hydrocortisone. Since winter break, she has lost 30 pounds. We will keep her on the steroid for a while longer. We anticipate a summer of chemo treatments, physical therapy, and many fun things we can do in between. We pray for well-being of Cammie and the rest of the family. We ask for prayers and any help you can give us. We appreciate all that everyone has done. All of our actions have made a difference. Blessings to you all, the Wynn family. The end of school. The highlight of Cammie's school year was the class Hawaiian play. The class had worked very hard on their lines and many songs for the play. They made scenery, props, and special costumes. They practiced very hard, and each student had a special part. Cammie had a few lines, as well as being a drum player and a hula dancer. When everyone was to sit on the floor, Cammie had a special chair to sit on. When everyone stood up to sing a song, Cammie was able to stand up from her chair without any assistance and sing right along with everyone else. The highlight for me was when Cammie stood up and walked to the front of the stage all by herself. And she did a short hula dance with a few of the other girls. Then she walked back and sat in her chair. This was a huge miracle. It must have looked normal to most people, but just a few short months ago, I thought her teachers were dreaming when they thought she could do that. We were all so proud of Cammie. We were all so happy with what she had done this year. Cammie had had a great year with her teachers and her classmates. She had gone through so much, and she was getting better. I felt the school should acknowledge Cammie for her achievements this year. I felt the school should have given Cammie special credit somehow for everything she had gone through. I felt the school, the teachers, and the students should have been congratulated on how well they supported Cammie. There were many opportunities in the last few school assemblies to give Cammie special acknowledgement. Many people in the school were acknowledged for special contributions throughout the year. There were many times I felt like standing up and just giving Cammie a cheer myself, but acknowledgement from me was not appropriate. I'm sure many parents wanted to stand up and give a special hooray for their child. Was I just feeling like any parent would feel? Surely Cammie had been extraordinary. Surely everyone had noticed the miracles happening right in front of them. Surely everyone would feel good about giving Cammie a little extra boost. Why hadn't anyone said anything? I wasn't sure. No one said anything to me in the halls. No administrator came up and congratulated us. I felt like something was a little bit wrong in the silence. Everyone was very happy those last few weeks of school. There were lots of fun activities. There were field trips, parties, picnics, and goodbyes. We planned to keep in touch with Cammie's teachers over the summer. We planned play dates with friends. We were moving into our new house soon, and we had lots of plans for a fun summer. It was hard to leave school, but we felt confident that we would be back for another fulfilling year.